Does your child or student have an IEP? Then you've come to the right place. If they have special education services, then you're going to be seeing a ton of IEP goals inside an IEP meeting. But what are those goals really saying about your child or student? In this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes of IEP goals so you understand what they're trying to tell you about your child or student and how to make them smarter so your child or student can get the best help that they deserve. I'm April Rarig, your special education advocate, and this is my cat, Mrs. Capricorn. We're here to make your IEPs and 504 plans so much easier. If you're new here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and make sure to follow us on Instagram at Rise Ed Advocacy. Here's what you need to know about IEP goals. IEPs are written during an individual education plan meeting, also known as an IEP, which are regulated under IDEA law. The problem is parents and teachers aren't given the instructions and directions when it comes to what an IEP goal is really supposed to measure and how to make them relevant, useful, and meaningful for team consideration. So in this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes of an IEP goal so you know what it's supposed to look like and how to make your goals smarter. Make sure to keep watching this video into the very end where I'm going to reveal all of my tips and resources that I use as a special education advocate with my families every day. Okay, so before we break it down and talk about smarter goals, we first need to answer the question under IDEA law. And that question is, what is an IEP goal supposed to do? So under IDEA, a goal is supposed to answer the question. And the question we all want to know is, what does it look like? The problem is with a special education is that goals tend to focus on the process or what the child is supposed to do instead of the how-tos or the underlying and the performance conditions. More about this later to keep watching this video. So in order to help you understand how to make your goals smarter, I'm going to be going through my favorite guide. That's why you need to check out my SMARTER IEP Goals free guide that lays out everything I'm about to tell you right now. Grab it in the link in the description box below. Okay, so let's go ahead and dig in. The S for SMARTER goals stands for specific and needs-based. What am I talking about? I'm talking about goals that are specific. That means they're going to tell you about your child or student what they can do, which are strengths, what they can't do, which are unique learning needs, and what do they need to learn or the projected baselines. That's a lot of information that helps us paint that picture in terms of what is the child doing and how are we going to get there? Now, the next thing we need to talk about is needs-based. This means your child's IEP goals are not based on their disability or not based on services. They're based on needs. More about this when you keep watching this video a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and dig into the next part. So now you know the S stands for specific and needs-based. Now we need to talk about the M, measurable and meaningful. What am I talking about? I'm talking about when developing an IEP goal, we need to start out what is being given, or also known as the underlying conditions. This is talking about accommodations, modifications, all those different parts of the IEP that are going to be inputted at the beginning of the goal so the child is given the right information. make sure to check out my video, What Does an IEP Look Like, that details the 8 parts inside an IEP. So you know exactly all the different parts when it comes to writing an IEP goal. Like I said, they all have to be connected. So when you understand all the different parts of the IEP, it's so much easier to write the goal. Make sure to get the link in the description box below. So we've talked about the S, we've talked about the M. Now it's time to talk about the A. And the A stands for attainable and time bound. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the setups, or what's called the performance conditions of the how-tos for an IEP goal. So here's the problem. Pro tip: when you walk into your child's or student's meeting, it's hard to know in your toolbox what to expect at the meeting and how to get the right stuff in your child's IEP goal. Make sure to check out my meeting toolkit that lays out exactly what to ask for and how to get it, and talks about so many things that I'm sharing with you right now. And the really awesome thing about the toolkit is that it's a digital guide, but you can print it out. When you bring something like this at the meeting, it changes from us and them at the table, whether you're a parent or a teacher, to us and we, and how are we going to help your child or students thrive. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So now it's time to get into the R, and the R for SMARTER goals has to do with relevant and useful. What am I talking about? I'm talking about so many times when we read those darn IEP goals, we look through it and we're like, what the heck is this? It's a nightmare to read. That's because it's not relevant and useful, meaning it doesn't make any sense. The problem with many IEP goals is, pro tip, they don't involve something that's really important, and this has to do with prompting and cueing. Yep, it's true. So when we understand the degree of mastery, or what is expected for your child to achieve the goal, then it's going to be relevant and it's going to be so much more useful. Case in point, when you set up an IEP goal and you say your child is going to read this and this and this words, well, the problem with this is it has nothing to do with the performance conditions. That the bigger thing is, like, so what? If we talk about the prompting and cueing, and we talk about how we're going to set up those conditions, then it makes it more relevant, and it certainly makes it more useful and attainable and time bound. I've got a free resource called the Prompt Hierarchy. And the really cool thing about the resource is it shows you exactly what is the expected degree of mastery and independence, and what's expected for the child when it comes to prompting and cueing, because there's so many different types of prompts, whether it's physical, verbal, indirect, direct. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below for a free guide. So now it's time to get into what's called the T, or when IEP goals are teachable through what's called specially designed instruction, also known as SDIs. What are SDIs? SDIs are the part of the IEP that talk about what your child is receiving and where, in terms of the specialized academic instruction, or perhaps speech and language services, OT, PT, behavior. It's all those services and supports that are laid out inside the IEP. The problem is, pro tip, as parents and teachers, it's really hard to understand all the different components of the IEP in terms of what does it look like and how can you meaningfully participate. I've got a do-it-yourself IEP meetings workshop that lays out all the different parts and explains them so you know what an IEP is supposed to look like, what the pages say, and how to meaningfully participate in order to prep before, during, and after each IEP meeting, to know what to ask for and how to get it, and ultimately to make your IEP meetings better and more effective. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. Now it's time to talk about one of my favorite things as a school psychologist, the E, and the E stands for evaluation derived. What am I talking about? I'm talking about that your child's IEP goals need to be based on their special education assessment. Did you know that? Now, where do we get this information from the special education assessment in order to craft it in the goals? I'm talking about what's called projected baselines. This means from where are we starting? That's the baselines based on the assessment to where your child needs to go with prompts fading to independence. See how I did that? I said where we're starting, where they need to go, and the tools and the resources to get there. Make sure to check out my video, How to Read an IEP Assessment, with 3 different tips that guide you through how to read your child's special education assessment like a school psychologist like me. Grab the link in the description box below. Now it's time to talk about the final part of how to make goals smarter. And this has to do with the R, or what's called research or evidence-based. What am I talking about? I'm talking about your IEP team needs to make goals that are based on research, that are based on evidence, that aren't just based on, well, we think this might be true. Well, we're not really sure. Your school and your district is required to provide IEP goals and services and supports that are based on research and based on evidence. Make sure to ask your school or district what their goals are based on and if they're based on this information in order to get the best IEP goals for your child. So now you know how to make smarter IEP goals, specifically what your goals should be looking like and how to make them relevant, useful, and meaningful. Let me ask you something. Now that you have all this information, what's the one thing that you want to do differently for your child's or student's next IEP meeting? Got a question? Make sure to put it in the comments in the description box below. Want me to do another video? Yep, I can do that too. Make sure to check out all of our videos, workshops, toolkits, and guides. I'm April Rarig, your special education advocate, and this is our cat, Mrs. Capricorn. Make sure to subscribe for our videos so to get more like this in your inbox every single week, and follow us on Instagram at RiseEdAdvocacy. I can't wait to see you for our next video.